Welcome back to Explaining Everything, the channel where we dive into the stories and mysteries behind everyday things. Today's question comes from one of our curious viewers, Avocado Overlord. Thanks for the suggestion, Avocado. You asked, what exactly is quinoa? If you've ever stared at that bag of tiny beige dots in the grocery aisle, wondering if it's rice, bird food, or edible gravel, you're not alone. Quinoa looks like rice, cooks like rice, but somehow costs more than rice ever dreamed of. So today, we're breaking down what quinoa actually is, where it came from, and why it's become the world's favorite super grain, right here on Explaining Everything. Let's start with the basics. Quinoa isn't actually a grain. Yeah, I know, that's the first betrayal. Everyone calls it a grain, looks at it like rice, cooks it like rice, and even eats it like rice. But botanically speaking, quinoa is what scientists call a pseudo-cereal, which sounds like a cereal that failed math class. What that means is, it's not technically a grass like wheat, barley, or rice. Instead, quinoa comes from a flowering plant related to spinach and beets. That's right. Underneath its posh, Instagrammable exterior, quinoa is basically a tiny edible relative of Popeye's favorite vegetable. Imagine if spinach and rice had a baby, and that baby went to an elite private school in the Andes. That's quinoa. And that's not all. It's also a seed. So technically, you're eating seeds when you eat quinoa. But don't worry, that doesn't mean you're turning into a bird. It just means you're eating something that's been quietly outsmarting the grain world for thousands of years. Quinoa's origin story could totally be a Netflix documentary. Thousands of years ago, long before quinoa was turning up in overpriced salads, it was being grown high up in the Andes Mountains, specifically in Peru and Bolivia, by the Inca civilization. The Incas actually called it the mother of all grains, which again is funny because it's not even a grain. But they loved it because it could survive tough conditions, high altitudes, freezing nights, scorching days, and zero Wi-Fi. To the Incas, quinoa wasn't just food, it was sacred. They used it in rituals, ceremonies, and probably in whatever counted as ancient protein shakes. When the Spanish conquistadors showed up in the 1500s, they weren't fans. They saw the local rituals involving quinoa and went, yeah, no, and banned it. Because of course they did. And just like that, quinoa went from sacred crop to underground food before making its epic comeback centuries later, probably with a man bun and an acoustic guitar. Fast forward to the modern world, where quinoa made its way from the Andes to your local health store, often labeled with phrases like superfood, ancient grain, and $14.99 per bag. Somewhere in Lima, an ancient Inca farmer just rolled his eyes. Now, let's talk about quinoa's claim to fame. Why is it called a superfood? Did it save a bus full of orphans? Does it wear a cape? Not quite, but nutritionally speaking, it's got some serious credentials. For starters, quinoa contains all 9 essential amino acids, which makes it a complete protein. That's a rare flex in the plant world. Most plant-based foods miss 1 or 2, but quinoa? Nah. Quinoa's out here completing the set like a Pokemon trainer. That's why vegetarians and vegans love it. It's one of the few non-meat foods that acts like meat in terms of protein. It's also high in fiber, which is science's polite way of saying this will keep your digestion very efficient. And it's packed with minerals, iron, magnesium, manganese, and zinc. All the good stuff your body needs but usually forgets to buy at the grocery store. And if that wasn't enough, quinoa's naturally gluten-free. So for anyone avoiding gluten, this tiny seed is like winning the food lottery. The irony is that quinoa has been gluten-free for thousands of years. It didn't decide to be trendy. Humans just caught up. But here's the funny thing. Quinoa never asked to be famous. One day it was living peacefully in the Andes, minding its own business. And the next thing it knew, Gwyneth Paltrow was talking about it on a talk show. Now it's the Beyoncé of the seed world. Elegant, versatile, and slightly intimidating in the pantry. Despite its fame, quinoa still confuses a lot of people. Some folks cook it like rice and wonder why it tastes like sadness. Others boil it without rinsing and then complain it's bitter. That bitterness, it's caused by saponins, a natural coating that protects the seeds from pests. In other words, quinoa comes with its own built-in defense system, kind of like if popcorn could pepper spray you. Luckily, most store-bought quinoa is pre-rinsed, but if you ever buy the raw stuff, rinse it well. Unless you enjoy food that tastes like soap, in which case you might have bigger problems. And then there's the pronunciation debate. Officially, it's quinoa. Simple, elegant. But somehow, humanity turned it into a linguistic free-for-all. There's always that one person who insists it's quinoa, like they're naming a rare Pokemon. The truth is, no one actually cares how you say it, as long as you're eating it and pretending to enjoy it in front of your health-conscious friends. Oh, and here's another fact that blows people's minds. Quinoa comes in over 120 different varieties. The most common ones are white, red, and black. White quinoa is the fluffiest. Red quinoa is a little nuttier, and black quinoa, well, it looks cool. It's the goth cousin at the family reunion. So, what exactly is quinoa? It's a tiny seed pretending to be a grain, a humble Andean survivor that somehow became a global superstar. It's ancient, nutritious, and just fancy enough to make you feel healthy, even if you still eat instant noodles at midnight. Next time you see quinoa on your plate, remember, you're not just eating a seed, you're tasting a piece of history, a dash of science, and a whole lot of mispronunciation. If you enjoyed this video, or if you now have the sudden craving for something healthy, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other bingeable channels. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time here in the channel that answers all the why, what, who, where, and how questions you've always wondered about, here on Explaining Everything.